Over 1 million years ago, somehow a bird reached the Galapagos Islands, which would be the ancestor of the give or take 18 species collectively known as Darwin's finches, which exist in the Galapagos today. They are endemic to the Galapagos, although one of them can also be found on an island off the coast of Costa Rica. While they are called finches, they are not actually related to true finches. Instead, they are more closely related to tanagers. And it's just that when they reached the Galapagos Island, they were able to adapt to various ecological niches that did not have the typical species of bird already occupying them, like finches. And so, therefore, some became finch-like over time as they adapted to new environments. These Darwin's finches are considered to be iconic in Charles Darwin's development of his thoughts on the origin of species and evolution. And they deserve this position as being iconic, but their road to that role was a bit more complex than what most appreciate. It was not as if young Charles Darwin visiting the Galapagos said, aha, look at all of these different species of finches existing on different islands adapted to new niches. This must be a case for evolution. It did not happen that way at all. Charles Darwin did not at first appreciate the importance of these finches, and he collected some, but he didn't label what islands they came from, because that realization that there might be different species living on their own individual islands was something which would come to him later. And so he started to realize that there were unique species in the Galapagos adapted to individual environments and islands, but it was the mockingbirds and the Galapagos tortoises which perhaps were more vital in planting the seed for these thoughts. Later, when he began to appreciate this, he relied on the help of others. So, for example, John Gould, once he got back to England, was the ornithologist which helped him identify these birds. Charles Darwin thought he had collected different types of birds, so like a finch, a blackbird, a grosbeak, whereas this ornithologist recognized, no, this was a new group of 12 new species that had not existed anywhere else. And Charles Darwin was able to borrow from the collections of the Captain Fitzroy from the Beagle and some of the others on the island who had collected some of these birds and labeled what island they had come from. So while these finches very nicely did provide evidence for the theory that Darwin was developing, it was not as if these were the observations which gave him that breakthrough moment while he was on the Galapagos. From their common ancestor, they diversified into, once again, about 18 species, which varied then their size, the size of their beaks, for different ecological roles. There are only a few which are observed here. I, on my brief visit to the Galapagos, did not observe all 18 species by any means. And some are quite endangered. So, for example, there is a new invasive fly which is laying its eggs in the nostrils of young birds where the larvae develop, which is causing the mortality of many of the nestlings of these Galapagos finches. And this is quite a problem for these species, which are essentially endemic to the Galapagos Islands, found nowhere else in the world.